So we've just done a 2-2-2, all them players down the middle of the pitch. This followed the ridiculous 8-man wide tactic, but today, who needs a midfield anyway? That's right, today we go with no midfield and we're going to use Sporting because at least I know the squad well. What we need to attempt to pull this off is a load of defenders, which they've got, a load of strikers, which they've got, and these guys in the middle, their careers at Sporting are basically over.
Time to go!
To do this, we've kind of got no option. We've got to have 5 at the back across there. We've got to have 3 up front. And then it's these 2 positions that could be the ones that are debatable. What we can go for is either 2 in there, but they've got to be shadow strikers, or we put them both wide. And I think if they're going to be out there to make them sure they're not midfielders, they've got to be the infamous Midfielders. Not even sure if I said that right. So now the shape turns into that. Even the game recognises it, calls it a 5-5 wide.
If I speak, I am in big trouble.
So you have 5 across the back, literally no one in DM, no one in central midfield areas, and then you've just got them 3 up front.
Absolute rubbish.
So the challenge here is to try and find roles and duties to occupy these massive, massive spaces that we've left behind. Now, I have chose Sporting because they've got a good squad and I know it, but the problem is they are expected to finish top 3, so there's a bit of pressure. There are a few roles that could help us out. Fullbacks, for example, we could possibly go inverted wing-backs. Central midfield, we could bring in a libero to tuck into that midfield area. And maybe up front, we can bring in a false 9 or someone who drops off a bit deeper. But we're still not going to avoid the fact that that chasm is big. And remember, that is basically how your team shapes up in defensive situations. They're going to drop back into that shape. That means these guys at the back have got a lot of work to do.
Let's go! Let's go! Let's go! Let's go!
Fast forward through pre-season, it's been surprisingly good, including a big win against Dortmund, who did have an absolute truckload of chances, but we were more clinical. Into this match with Dortmund, you can see the shape we've got here. We've actually got bodies in midfield there. We've got Diomande, Coates and Inacio. That should give you an insight into the tactic I'm about to show you. And we've got 2 guys at the back. So going forward, it doesn't look too bad, does it? And a goal comes from this, thanks to those players in the middle playing as fake midfielders. There is the first version of this. And somebody asked me about this. How do you get your chemistry so fast? Listen, there's no science to it. I have honestly no idea. They've just taken to it. Maybe it's because they're used to playing with each other and there's no transfers in and they've had a good pre-season, but chemistry is through the roof. That is what we've been using. So for this version, to find bodies in the middle, I went with a triple libero, which we do have experience of. We've got Diomande on support and Inacio on support, so they will go a bit higher up. So when we're in possession, they'll go up to here. And Coates, as a defender libero, will pop in there. And these 2, like we saw in the clip, jump in there. When we've got the ball, it's really not a problem. It's when we don't have the ball, the problem ensues. You can see when Dortmund have got the ball here, there's central midfielders with all the space in the world. As it progresses up the pitch, these guys are not getting tracked by anybody. And that's where all the goals are going to come from. To help us out a bit, we've gone more direct. So we're going to get that ball up to these attacking areas as fast as possible, but still playing out of defence. I'm also not messing around with it when we do get the ball, taking long kicks straight up to them strikers. So I'm toying with the defensive line. I don't know whether to go really high or really low. I'm going to start really low and see how it goes. But after a good pre-season, who knows? I think we'll be good in the league, but we've got a really demanding board.
Let's go! Let's go! Let's go! Let's go!
In the league, we started off well. There are some weaker teams we should be able to take advantage of. Like we said, we're going to have loads of players out wide and in the box. Look at that. First big test was Porto in the Super Cup. It didn't go as badly as I thought, and this was even with 10 men. So we lost that one 2-1, but promising. I won't lie, I was worried about AC Milan in the Champions League at the San Siro. Now, we did create chances in this one, but ultimately, we got battered. Bit of a wake-up call, that one. Now, despite that, the start of the season had been okay. In the league, we sat 4th, but only 5 points off top, but we had lost a couple of games already. In the league, we made a couple of tweaks, but there was a slight problem at the back with chemistry starting to falter. Into January, our Champions League campaign wasn't great. We only won 1 and drew 1, both against Cypriot team Aris Limassol. Couple of worrying signs in the league as well. We got pretty much battered here by a team we shouldn't be getting battered by. 2-1 at home, and if you look at a bit further down, our average ratings weren't great, and that sort of tactic there, with all those people in the middle, is one that can expose us. So a little bit of a dodgy run, but then we came back and won 5 straight, including a hat-trick from one of our liberos. As we win the ball back here, there's 1, there's 2, and there's 3, all 3 of them across there, and they are basically dominating the midfield for us because they are our only option, so it's a good job they can shoot. A booming hat-trick. That run of form had pushed us up to second. We're only 2 points behind Porto here. But just a month later, it's never a good sign when you see this message, or this one. After winning 5 on the spin, we lost 5 on the spin. Spiralled down to 5th in the league. But in the Europa League, we got some form back, and against Olympiacos, we smashed in 6. A 6-3 win, that should get the board off our backs.
Do what you need to do.
In the return leg, Olympiacos beat us 6-3 and then knocked us out on penalties.
I'm not nervous.
This is not looking good. We were just about clinging on to our job with a couple of wins. I dropped Coates back to a ball-playing defender to try and make us more solid, but that meant less bodies in the middle in attack. We had a better run at the end of the season, but missed out on a Champions League spot by a point. And despite constant talk of potential sackings, we somehow survived the season. Okay, I tweaked throughout that, but it's time to reverse it, and we're going to try something different this time. See if we can make it a little bit better. Okay, this is version 2. We've gone a completely different way for this one. In this one, we're asking the 2 fullbacks to support the middle alongside a centre-back and keeping 2 centre-backs back. We're also asking 2 false nines to drop in the hole as well. On this occasion, you can see that the fullback is the one who supplies the key pass. So this is the one we went for this season. The inverted wing-backs will jump into there, both of them, and 1 libero Diamandi. So that'll leave the 2 centre-backs sitting back higher up the pitch. We're going to have 2 false nines this time. We drop back instead of 1.
Heritage.
That's what we'll go for this time. Team instructions are pretty much the same. We've got a balance mentality, but I have gone for a higher defensive line on this one. I thought we were inviting too much pressure last time. The early signs were really good. The false nine was linking up great with the Rome de Teurs down the sides. Not only that, the libero was getting involved quite often as well. Our first home match was an 8-goal win. Our first 4 matches looked bloody promising. Even against a team that was flooding the middle, we still played really well. After 8 matches, we were top of the league and absolutely flying. Then we played Bologna in the Champions League, still using Motta's principles, rampaging defenders through the middle, found all the space in the world. And that, ladies and gents, is our wake-up call. So predictably, the Champions League campaign was a bit tough. But now in January, the league was still absolutely flying. We're still sat top and we've only lost 1 match, and that was at Benfica. We've scored 50 times, conceding 15, and that's the key one, only 15. Team's looking good, and surprisingly, some key players. Who would have thought the Rome de Teurs would be the boys? 12 assists for Goncalves, and Edwards with another 12 assists. Never used this role out of total fear, but it's doing well. Into March, we got dumped out of the Europa League by Real Sociedad. Not a disgrace. We went 2-0 up against Porto, but we lost in the last minute. In the return at Porto, despite being the better team, we somehow managed to lose 4-1. But we rebounded with 6-goal wins against Santa Clara and AVS. And after another 4-goal win, this time from the inverted wingback, at the start of March, we were very much in a title fight. This one looks like the far stronger version of the two. Arguably, our best performance and result of the season was getting a 1-1 draw away at Benfica using that formation. That was part of a cracking run, which meant with 4 games to go, we were top by 3 points. We couldn't do this, could we?
Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go.
This penalty miss was vital. Our first defeat in ages meant with 1 game to go, Porto went atop of us because of the head-to-head record that beat us twice.
You are having a laugh.
Our tough final match was Braga. We had to do better than Porto. It was probably one of our better performances. The liberos getting involved again. I mean, we just saw a libero Rome de Teurs link up, and there's a Rome de Teurs on the other side. We smashed Braga 3-0, but Porto won 9-0. It meant, despite a cracking effort, Porto took the league despite us being level on points. Not in my wildest dreams did I think we would be fighting for a title with that formation, but we did. Here's a rundown. You can see from the 50 matches started with the 5-5 wide, but clear-cut chances was plus 56. If you want to play around with that, I'll stick it in Patreon. Obviously, it wouldn't be recommended, but if you're chasing a goal, shows you can have a go with it.